So, Erin, I actually want to start with you because I was just having this conversation last night with some bankers, and one banker said that his team is very multicultural compared to everyone else on the floor. Can you just tell me how multicultural is different from inclusion?
Sure, thanks for the question. The way that we frame diversity, inclusion, and belonging at Upwork is kind of starting at the end. So we like to think about belonging being a feeling of fit and enablement to show up authentically at work in a safe environment. Inclusion is a practice. So there we're really talking about the decisions that are made on micro scales, from who's invited to a meeting, who's included on an agenda, and a macro scale, who's getting promoted, who's getting stretch assignments, who's getting pay increases. And then diversity is really about representation. That's where multicultural really comes in. So looking at your demographics, looking at the spread of representation across levels, across departments is sort of an outcome as we think about it. So all of these things swirl together to shape cultures, to shape workplaces. And you can't really have any one of these ingredients without the other.
Okay, so you just brought up data, and so this is a perfect segue right now for Paulette. How are you using data within your organization to achieve these initiatives? Are you seeking help from third parties, or are you getting it all for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, this is something I think most companies are continuing to work on, right? At Mondelez, we are as well. So, you know, we're a big global snacking company. Hopefully a lot of the brands people know and love, Oreo, Ritz, Belvita, Cadbury. And we want to be as transparent as we can be and share a lot of our data. So we do an annual report documenting our progress and our commitments across a range of ESG topics, including DEI. We call that our Snacking Made Right report, and we make it publicly available on our website. We use data to make sure that we're looking internally, but we're also telling a narrative around where we are against our progress against our goals and commitments. So this annual report includes reporting around our initiatives, including our EEO-1 disclosures in the US, and progress against representation across different markets. You know, the goals that we have, an important element around transparency here is what we do around our annual compensation program, where we're actually sharing results in those targets. So, for example, increasing women in senior management, knowing what that looks like across the globe, right? We've been able to do that, increasing by 15%, right? Now up to almost 40% of our senior leaders who are women, and tracking things like Black management representation in the US, and knowing the progress against those goals and sharing them and disclosing that, right? In the US, up 60% in 2021 alone. So we do need to continue to make sure we're balancing our data, how we're cultivating it. We're using our internal systems, of course. The other thing that we're also measuring, which may be notable, is in our talent management processes, ensuring that we've got robust development actions for our people, but doing so in a way where we're actually measuring our depth of talent results, right? Looking at succession readiness for top leadership, improving every year, in our case, up 16% since 2019. And why is that important? Because I think the folks that we're bringing into the organization, they want to know that they've got a thriving career ahead and that there's opportunities internally for them. And so those are some of the things that we track and the important data behind those.
Okay, and I'm going to get back to the data in just one second, but I actually just want to broaden out this topic for a moment. And Erin, I'm going to ask this to you because it seems like maybe I could say this: over the past 2 years, the United States, the world has faced somewhat of a self-reckoning when it comes to race, equality, and all that. But then you have a celebrity, Kanye West, or Ye, I should say, who made anti-Semitic comments, and you had a bunch of companies that invested in one single person slowly starting to drop him. So how do companies mitigate that risk when it's revolved around controversy?
Sure. I mean, I think every company needs to come up with criteria for signing on ambassadors, sponsors, even vendors, suppliers, and team members as well, right? We're really talking about norms of conduct. We're talking about values. You know, one big stake in the sand that we made at Upwork back in 2020 was really thinking about, you know, how much do we kind of create a liberated workplace where folks, as I mentioned earlier, are free to be themselves, and what are the bounds of that self-expression? when we infringe upon the rights, the dignity, and the safety of others, that's where we draw lines in terms of conduct and behavior. And so I think, you can't always minimize that risk down to zero, but having safeguards in place and taking action early, which a lot of these sponsors of Yay hadn't done, I think is really what folks want to see in terms of accountability and reinforcing the values of your organization. So, it's wonderful, as an example, that Adidas cut ties with Yay yesterday. There's a lot of questioning in the Black community of why that didn't happen sooner, given all of his hateful rhetoric and the harm that causes to whole populations.
But you just used the word safeguard. So then if we have business leaders listening right now, can you give me a specific example of a safeguard? Maybe not pertaining to racism, but just in general so that I can understand it a little bit better.
Sure. So one thing that we're working on at Upwork is really codifying our values and our working principles. These are lateral behavioral expectations that every single team member will be measured and assessed against, and baking that into performance management, having that run alongside your profitability, run alongside your other objectives and key results, and be weighted is really important reinforcement. It's a really important safeguard so that we can monitor during key times of year, during formal performance management decisions, who's fitting within our culture, who is harmful to our culture, who's a carrier of our culture. I think another safeguard for the most egregious behaviors, of course, is having a response protocol, enabling employees to raise a flag on a coworker who is violating company norms and values, and making it safe to do so, obviously, without reparations, without repercussions. So, from the most crisis-based situations to kind of these softer, longer tail situations, if someone's not really pulling their weight to enhance your culture, making sure that that really counts for something. And then on the flip side, those who are those carriers of culture get rewarded for being so.
Paulette, we just talked about the self-reckoning that's happening here in the United States, and maybe about 2 years ago in 2020, we unfortunately had the murder of George Floyd, and there was something that changed within your corporation. Can you explain what type of initiatives changed and other examples of DEI initiatives, please?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it would have been impossible not to do a clear-eyed view around what else can corporations do. We certainly did that at Mondelez. And I would say, even building on what Erin was talking about, just linking your DEI work to your company's values and purpose. Like that's where it has to start, right? We're a global snacking leader, and tying that to our purpose, which is, empowering people to snack right. That's what we're all about, right? Making the right snack at the right moment, made the right way. And so when I think about what DEI has to do as part of that, it has to be integrated. Our goal is to tie back to that purpose. And when we established our pretty simple values, love our consumers and brands, grow every day, and do what's right, DEI comes back to that. Loving our consumers and brands, creating and bringing to market great tasting snacks that are locally and culturally relevant, right? What do we stand for in each of our markets around the globe, and knowing that? Growing every day, right? Having a culture where we strive to create opportunities for our people so that everybody can bring their whole self to work and know that they can grow and develop here. That was really important. And doing what's right, maintaining a commitment around strong ethics, compliance practices in our hiring and our advancement, because we know we only win through a diverse, inclusive, and connected company. So when it came time for us to step up, we reassembled ourselves around goals and commitments and doubled down on the progress that we expected of ourselves. And that's tied a little bit to, Kristina, what I was talking about earlier around the commitments and the data that we use to be more transparent for our internal and our external stakeholders.
I have one question then for the both of you, but I'll start with Erin. Based off of, our panel is called DEI as a business imperative, so it's imperative, but could you both speak to maybe the unintended consequences that can occur from some of these initiatives? And Erin, I'll direct that question at you first.
Sure. I mean, diversity fatigue is very real. This is something I always manage with my stakeholders and with my team. And so, there's a lot of research on sort of backlash against diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. I think a lot of orgs are well-intentioned, but don't always take a change management lens to driving some of these initiatives. And so with that, you can get resistance. You can get folks, disengaging from efforts and perhaps misconstruing the intent of efforts. And so it's really important to lay this foundational work that we've been talking about around, how this is critical to the mission or to the goals of your organization, how this is a set of behaviors and outcomes that you'll be measuring and holding folks accountable for. And then again, the accountable piece is really around taking action, both positive and perhaps more negative, depending on how folks show up. And so I think cascading that understanding, driving attitude change and behavioral change is a sequence of behaviors that need to be, scaffolded out. Otherwise, you can get folks kind of throwing up their hands, feeling disempowered, or perhaps under-equipped to actually follow through on the expectations you've laid out for them.
Paulette, have you experienced any of that at the corporation, any diversity fatigue or any unintended consequences?
Yeah, I don't know that I'd say they're unintended consequences, right? Our organizations, they're busy, right? There's a lot on our leaders' plates to contend with. This is the most disruptive environment globally I think we've ever had to operate in, and that says a lot, right, coming out of the pandemic. So what are we trying to do? How do we stay focused on what's important? I like this notion of fundamentals, getting back to the priorities that we need to stand to. We've made commitments as an organization that the robust energy around DEI across the company is still alive and well, which I think is a great thing. Things that we've put in place to sort of help nudge the behavior, things like candidate slates, making sure that for manager level positions and above that we have final diversity on all of those slates, right? That they're indicators of the progress that we want to make that sort of help us. Things like having partnerships that are more integrated so that our colleagues feel like they can participate fully in our DEI agenda, whether that's our employee resource groups. We partner with the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, where we offer financial assistance to outstanding students attending one of its member schools, right, which includes 47 publicly supported historically Black colleges and universities. That's great. Our colleagues can get involved in that. They can play a role. We lead the national partner, as the lead national partner for the Boys and Girls Club of America, the youth program of the year. We work with local Boys and Girls Clubs year round. So we've found a way to sort of take the energy on this topic among the workforce and partner it against the right engagement activities that we have. And, is it easy given we're also needing to run a business? Yes, but I think the engagement of the organization is key to continuing to maintain the energy and the momentum on this agenda.
I love that.
Oh, go ahead.
Can I jump in there, Kristina? I just want to say,
Yes.
I think one of the scarcest resources from a workforce is really that time and attention. And so just a heavy +1 to everything we just heard in terms of providing a menu of small to large, commitments that any individual can make and take is the way to kind of spread out that investment and that activity that you want to see. So making that possible and helping folks engage in the ways that make sense for them and their workloads at any given point in time, kind of keeping that machinery running is a lot of what we're building to as well.